I enjoy working for companies that want to change their industry, and Anaplan is certainly impacting the long-standing players in the market.
We are in a massive hypergrowth phase, and we're also working on some of the most interesting problems in the business at the moment.
The other aspect is the passion of my colleagues. It's very infectious. There's a real appetite to improve and to build something very, very special and unique here.
I think Anaplan is trying to create a solution that will have a huge impact on the way that organisations work. On top of which, I come to work with a huge smile on my face every day because I get to work with smart and passionate people.
So I really believe at Anaplan that engineering is world class and that we're always kind of trying to solve solutions with a top quality finish.
We really do have a really open and collaborative environment, and we really work to break down silos and work cross-site, cross-function, cross-team.
I think the engineering culture is really about freedom through responsibility. We have a core held belief that autonomous teams create the best outcomes. And so we try to balance the direction and the strategy of our product organisation with the freedom for engineers to really create solutions to those challenges.
It's easy to have engaging discussions and actually have a dialogue about what you are thinking to build or do versus just being told.
I've previously worked in big corporate organisations, and Anaplan kind of has the best of both worlds, right? The ambition and the scalable challenges of a big corporate organisation, but still the small kind of start-up founders mentality culture that means that you can get stuck in and make a difference as an individual as well as part of the kind of bigger machine.
Just having IPO'd, having so much potential, so much growth, there's so many ways you can define your role and be who you want to be.
What I've learned at Anaplan is there's lots of opportunities to influence and improve how we deliver software. There's a lot of opportunities both to learn the technology and in my personal professional development. One day of the week I might be working on a stability drive, and another week it can be on process improvements around developing our new SDLC, and a third week delving into, say, the Kubernetes technology and working out how we're going to failure test that to see how resilient it is. Makes the role sort of very unique and the challenge at Anaplan very exciting.
The great thing about engineering is that we're really never content. We are always looking to improve things.
And as we grow, and we're growing 40% year on year, pretty much, doing that on a scalable way that enables each site to retain its own culture and its own personality is a challenge that I'm really excited to be a part of.
Because we are in a hyper-growth stage, it's really important for us to be recruiting the best engineers in the country, in the world.
What excites me most is the opportunity to build a team to meet the growing demands of the company.
We're really looking for people who are going to take ownership of the whole problem, who really care about delivering what's best for our customers and understand what's going to be good for them. We know that we have a long way to go. We know that there are a lot of tough challenges ahead of us, and we're really looking for people who are going to come and help us with that.
Good morning and welcome to User Groups Live. We are here in the York office, which is the home of Anaplan, and it is my privilege to host today's Anaplan User Groups Live event. My name is Richard Halford. I'm a user experience designer based here in the York office, and in the York office we have all of the various components that make Anaplan up. So we have development, we have engineering, we have the technical docs team, we have research and design, product management, all together under the one office here in York. So, User Groups Live. This is a virtual event that brings the user groups to your home or to your office. You can connect and interact online with us or at our many community meetups that we have. User groups are the heart of the Anaplan community. They are for the users, by the users. Right, so today, what have we got lined up for you? Well, we've got the latest in the best practices. We're going to review upcoming platform features and releases. We're going to discuss user research and design with you today, close to my heart as a designer. We're going to talk to the engineering and support teams with you today, and we're going to dive into the new UX and look at the honeycomb. And we are going to advance your connected planning journey today. So, Few things. We are in a working office, so if you hear murmured conversations or footsteps around, hopefully they won't intrude too much, but it is a working office. It's great to have you here with us. To get the best out of today, please use the chat window, which is to my left, your right, to ask any questions that you might have during the events and the segments with us. And at the end of every segment, the presenters will hop online and continue to answer those questions and continue the conversation with you. We'll do our best to answer them. And then at the end of the event today, we will open up an event forum as well for us to continue those conversations. So we will have, at the end of today, we will keep the chat window open for 30 minutes to continue to answer any questions you might have and round off those conversations. So if you know someone who has missed today or you need to run at some stage, don't worry, we've got you covered. We have recorded today's session and you will get an email in a couple days or a day or two with the details on how to access that video recording. If you have any technical difficulties, please post a comment in the chat window or email community@anaplan.com. We have people standing by ready to help you get back on sorted. Now, if, touch wood, something does go wrong and we have a major technical fault today, not planned, shouldn't happen, but if it does, don't worry, we will send an email out to all the pre-registered folk with instructions on how to get back online, and hopefully it will be a case of refreshing your browser and you'll jump right back in. So let's get started. Our first segment this morning is Customer First, User Research and Design Impact on the Platform. And we're going to talk about how your input and feedback shapes the direction of the Anaplan platform. So it is with great pleasure that I can introduce you to three of my fantastic colleagues, Pam and Alicia and Greg.
Hi, and welcome to User Groups Live. I'm Alicia. I'm a researcher based here in the York office, and I've been with Anaplan for about 2.5 years now.
Hi everyone, I'm Pam. I'm also a researcher, and I'm based in our London office, and I've been with Anaplan for almost 4 years.
Hi everyone, my name's Greg. I'm a designer. I've been at Anaplan for just over 5 years, and I'm based in the York office as well. So we're here today to talk about the UX team, and to give you some tips on how to provide UX practices to your end users in order to provide better experiences. So you're probably thinking, or at least some of you are probably thinking, what is UX? To me, UX, or user experience, is every interaction that a user experiences when they use a product. Designers are often thought as those who just design what the interface looks like, but the practice of user experience is really getting to understand user needs and the problems that they face in order to provide a better experience and to design that solution. UX is understanding, as I mentioned, user needs and designing solutions to meet them. But we really believe that UX can add a lot of value because ultimately it creates emotions such as happiness and frustration and everything in between. Take, for example, a mountain bike. Is when someone wants to go out and buy a mountain bike, is it for the tyres or the spokes or the saddle, or is it those Shimano gears? Or are they really looking for this? A mountain bike is just a set of tools and features, and it's our job as designers to take those tools and features and turn them into an intuitive and exhilarating experience.
It's about making things easy as well. So, for example, I have a story that I love to tell about a clothes dryer. So when I moved house, I bought a new clothes dryer, and for the life of me, I could not figure out how to use it. And all I was trying to do was just make it a little bit warmer. My clothes weren't getting dry. It was taking forever. And it got to the point where I had to actually get out the product manual on how to use my dryer. And that's not a great experience. It shouldn't be so complicated. I just want my clothes to be dry. So that's an example of how someone could have had a better, thought around me as the user or the customer to dry my clothes.
Absolutely. And it's not just the UX team that is part of this process. We work with users and other specialists such as engineers and product owners in order to choose the best set of features that is ultimately going to deliver that great set of features.
And on the UX team, we have different specializations. So we have researchers like Alicia and I. Our job is to really understand who our users are, what their needs are, what problems we can help them solve. We have UX designers like Greg, and they take that understanding of the problems and the needs and the users and start to figure out different possible solutions that we can then evaluate. We also have visual designers, and their job is to apply a visual aesthetic and give what we do personality. And as you can see on the slide, we're located in America and the UK. We have 4 offices. There's 18 of us right now. But we work really closely together despite our geographical disparity. And we work on both Anaplan, the platform, and also the larger ecosystem, so things like Anapedia and Community as well. And you might wonder, what kind of background does a researcher have? What is a researcher? So Alicia and I are we both come from academia. So I have a cognitive psychology background.
And I have a social science academic background. So before working at Anaplan, I did a lot of work with government. I worked at universities as a quantitative and qualitative researcher. So, again, from university, you probably remember taking a research course and learning about the different types of methods. And those are all methods that we use here in the UX team as well, just to help us kind of get to what we're trying to build for our customers. And Greg, what about designers? I'm sure designers also have such a varied background.
Absolutely, yeah. The design team has a very diverse background. We have folks with a graphic design background, interaction design backgrounds, industrial design backgrounds, and designers that have come from kind of B2C and agency side, as well as from other enterprise side companies in the past.
Great, and that's how we work with you to build a great experience for you at Anaplan. So again, we are not in sales, we're not in supply chain, we work here at a tech company. And so it's really important for us to get out as a UX team, get to know our customers, what are the problems, what are the things that they're trying to do so that we can build better solutions for you. And this really allows us to get to what we were talking about earlier, that great experience. We don't want to create frustration, we want to make sure that we're delivering the right types of things for you. And so that's why it's so important for us to really keep the users and the customers and partners at the center of what we're doing.
Should we actually, before we go into talking about the new user experience, we could talk a bit about our day-to-day. Yeah. So we have 3 researchers on the team, and so Alicia and I are both more, our background is more in qualitative research, and then we have a researcher who's more focused on quant and analytics. So there are fewer of us than designers, but we basically try to figure out, what are the highest risk projects or the areas that need more exploration, and we focus more on those. Yeah, working with design, product management, and engineering, and then we're starting to train the designers more in doing some of their own research for some of the easier stuff, the quicker feedback, quick testing. And so the day-to-day would be, we would usually pair up with a team. So right now, you know, I have a project that I'm really focused on. You have a similar situation. But then we're pretty much involved in all the projects to some extent, but we tend to have one project that we're really focused on. Is there anything else you want to
Yeah, and I think just clarifying, you know, from a research perspective, what we mean by risk is things that were less known to us. So again, you know, it's making sure that we put that knowledge and understanding into what customers are trying to do. So that, from our perspective, is, you know, if we don't know, then obviously we're making more of an assumption, and we don't want to do that. So it's about, as a research team, definitely collaborating across those projects to make sure that we're really understanding what customers are trying to do. You know, for example, in mobile, what people are trying to do in mobile is very different than what they're trying to do, you know, sat at a desk with a laptop or a computer. You know, obviously you're out and about, right? You're doing different things, so the needs are different at that stage. So yeah, absolutely.
What about designers?
Thank you for asking, Pam. So, as far as the designers concerned, we obviously have designers sat in the feature teams executing on our current projects. So, for example, we have a number of feature teams executing on new user experience features, and we have designers assigned to those teams. So their day-to-day is very much working mostly with the engineers and the product owners in those teams. So they have Scrum ceremonies, like daily stand-ups, as well as sprint ceremonies such as planning and refinement and so on. So they're collaborating very, very closely with their feature teams. But there are also kind of designers that sit outside of feature teams as well, that are thinking a bit further out, so more strategically. So what's the next great experience that we want to deliver kind of after the new UX, that sort of thing, the sort of thing you might think you might see at CPX conferences. But all of the designers and researchers, obviously, it's just really important that we're collaborating on a fairly regular basis, because we don't want a designer in one feature team kind of designing in a silo, and another designer in a feature team designing in a silo. We kind of need to bring that together at a high level. So we have like really regular kind of global UX meetings, 2 or 3 a week, as well as local UX meetings in each location, just to make sure that we're all aligned and we're designing patterns that we're all happy with and going to be used across the board.
Yeah, so we give in our team meetings, we give the designers feedback. So we all have, you know, bringing our perspective on things that could be improved a little bit. And then we agree we're at a point where we want to take it out to our users and get feedback from them. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
And the difficult part about all this is that we're trying to do things really fast too, right? So we want to get things out to our customers. So it's that balance between trying to make sure that we're delivering, you know, quickly, so customers are happy with the things that we're releasing, but also making sure that we get it right. So it's important and challenging.
Okay, so I'm going to talk a bit about how UX is helping to transform Anaplan. So we've just launched our new user experience. Probably some of you have seen it already. And it's a new way for business users to view and consume data on a mobile device or on the web. So the way the project started, it was a couple of years ago now. We started with research. We went out and interviewed customers and did some observations to really understand, you know, who uses Anaplan, what different roles do they have, what are they trying to do, what challenges are they facing, what are their needs. And the most important thing was we didn't want to just start designing and do that based on our own assumptions and designing for ourselves, basically. So we really wanted to get this foundation, this really good understanding of the real problems, because, you know, people like you are the experts. We want to learn from you and make sure that we have, you know, your needs guiding what we're doing. So we found that we have different types of users. So we have some business users who want really simple, easy to use experiences, kind of like what you're seeing here on the screen. And then we have some more advanced users who want really powerful features and flexibility. So we also found business users want great looking dashboards and reports with personalization and collaboration capabilities that they can use on any device. And builders want easier and better ways to create these great experiences for their users. So we took all this knowledge, all this research into a 12-week, really intense design ideation phase. We did a lot of sketching and prototyping. We came up with a lot of different ideas, threw some out, refined some, and then we got to the point where we had some concepts that we wanted to get feedback on from users. We did a lot of iterations. Sometimes we just didn't quite get it right. Sometimes, you're just really not sure, if what you're proposing is going to work or not. Should we talk a little bit more about that? So.
Yeah, well, and it's kind of funny when customers participate in sessions with us. Sometimes they're like, well, I'm not sure if I should say this. I don't want to hurt your feelings. And it's like, no, it's not about that at all. Obviously, when we're doing testing, when we're going through design testing or prototype testing, absolutely, it's about making sure that the thing is working in the ways that you need it to. And so absolutely, we promise that you won't hurt our feelings. You might hurt Greg's feelings, but definitely not going to hurt Gemini's feelings. So yeah, absolutely. And what's interesting as well is the difference between an earlier stage testing, so prototype testing, versus once something moves into development. So in a beta stage, for example, something might work in a prototype, but then once people have their own data and use it with their own kind of information, then it's like, ooh, hang on a minute, this isn't exactly what I thought. So we have some times that we thought that we had figured something out, and then we would get additional feedback in beta, and then we're not quite sure again. So
so to kind of reiterate what Pam and Alicia have already said is we do as much as we can up front, like the ideation phase, to kind of reduce risk as much as possible, but it's basically we're never going to get everything 100% right, and so we've built a process during the execution phase when we're working with engineering product to make sure that we can react quickly to feedback and kind of build those requirements in as we move along. So we've obviously got the more strategic kind of roadmap items that we need to attack, but we're always listening to customer feedback to make sure that if there are any major issues that crop up or UI bugs, then we can kind of insert those into sprints and address them quickly.
Yeah, I think some of the teams that are going later today might be able to talk a little bit more about that process as well. So the engineering and the support and L3, or the support and QA teams, will be able to maybe give some insight into that as well. So
Yep. So this process of creating something, for us it might be sketches or prototypes, and then getting feedback, and then making sense of the feedback and figuring out what needs to be changed or updated or improved. It's probably very similar to what you were doing if you're creating a dashboard for your users. You want to understand what their needs are. You're going to build something out, get their feedback. Maybe you need to make some tweaks, hopefully small tweaks. So it's pretty similar, I think, to what you're used to today if you're a model builder. So back to the new UX process. So we got to the point, we did all this iteration, got to the point where we moved into development, and engineering was able to really get heavily involved and start building things. Now we're in GA, but during the beta phase and still today, we've made sure to listen to customers along the way and made changes accordingly. So you can see some crazy metrics here. So we've talked to so many users. We're really tired. We've done a lot, working really hard the last couple of years. But we've talked to many users from more than 200 customers. We have more than 2,000 feedback items. They're still coming in every day. We'll talk a bit later about how you can give us feedback. And we review all the feedback that's coming in and figure out what does it mean, what are the themes that we're seeing, and what improvements and enhancements can we continue to make. And we've gotten a lot of positive feedback on the new UX and some constructive feedback, so we'll continue to keep making it better and hopefully something everyone loves to use.
Cool. So alongside the new user experience, we've also been evolving our design language through what we're calling the Anaplan design system. And the Anaplan design system is a library that allows us to document our common interface patterns and components. When we did an audit of our current experiences, we found that we had a lot of inconsistency and duplicate patterns and components that were used to kind of solve the same problems, basically. So by allowing us to provide kind of a standardized set of UI patterns and components, designers and developers across teams and across locations can move a lot faster and reduce rework. And ultimately the benefit is to our customers, because through the Anaplan design system and these standardized components, they'll receive a lot more cohesive and seamless experience as they move through the Anaplan ecosystem.
And so how can you apply UX ways of working to your work as well? So our top tips are to just research early and often. So go out and talk to your users. Again, you know, just like we're not the users, you're also, if you're building dashboards, you might not actually be the user for that, that board. So make sure that you talk to people. Don't wait until you've actually built it, but go ahead and talk to them before. And remember, you want to focus on problems and not solutions. So there might be a process that was put in place 5 years ago, but technology has changed, people have changed. So don't just replicate and recreate the same process now. You might need to make some changes when you do that. And also just ensure you're getting feedback at all stages. So you can do this in a number of ways. Maybe do a survey, or maybe observe your users while they're using the different boards that you're building or pages for them. There's a lot of different ways that you can gather feedback from your users. And you can also check out our design best practices. I believe there'll be some links posted for you later. So you can go to Anapedia and see some of the design best practices that we've put together to give you some tips on how to do things better in design. So.
And we thought it'd be great to actually talk through some of those best practices now at a high level, so that you can apply these to your apps in the new experience in order to produce better experiences for your users. So first up, I'd like to talk about one of our new page types that we're calling boards. We've designed these to be optimized to make it really easy for you to build great looking boards, dashboards and reports for your end users. They're great for showing high-level metrics through KPI cards and visualizations. And for that reason, we recommend not putting huge grids on pages like this, because they're not really optimized for that. However, you can link cards from boards through to other pages that we'll talk about in a second to provide more information. So that brings us to our second page type, the worksheet. And we've designed this to really make it easy for your users to analyze large data sets. And for that reason, this is where we do advise that you put large grids of data. The reason being is it's optimized through that single scroll experience, and we've introduced a Write Insights panel that allows the builder to place additional information that's relevant to the main grid that the user can choose to pull in as and when they need it. So I'm just going to talk quickly around some of our key design principles that we also recommend you think about when designing experience. So the first being prioritize by importance. It might sound obvious, but it's really key that when you're designing your experience, that the first page that the user lands on when they come into your app is really providing the most important information. I suppose does sound quite obvious, but also when you're thinking about a particular page as well, make sure you're putting the most important page at the top, for example, like in this screenshot, through KPI cards and visualizations. And that way it means that users can come into your app and get a really quick sense of the current status of what's going on without having to dig around looking for information.
It's like what we talked about earlier, there's different types of users in Anaplan, and so some might just want to come in quickly and find something and then move on to the rest of their work or another tool. So
Absolutely, and to build on that, this is one of my favorite design principles that we call progressive disclosure, and it kind of alludes to what we were just talking about. What this means is breaking content up into digestible chunks in order to not overwhelm the user with too much information on the screen at any one time. And we did find from research that actually with the current experience, sometimes screens were kind of overwhelming because our customers were putting a lot of content on the screen at one time. So this is really looking to solve that. And you can do that by providing kind of summarized cards that link through to more detail on a worksheet, for example. One of our other key design principles is consistency. We talk about that a lot. And that can mean in terms of naming conventions, layout, colors. And the example we've got on the screen right now, we've got a couple of visualizations that are actually showing the same two metrics, annual quota and year-to-date bookings. But they have different colors, and also the order of the legend items is different. So as a user coming in and viewing that information, that's confusing because it looks like I'm looking at two different data sets when actually it's just a different kind of way of visualizing the same data. So we recommend, therefore, using the same colors and the same order of the legend items. Just a kind of quick overview of some of our visualization best practices. So when it comes to column charts, they're great for showing kind of large variations in value across list and line items. For example, financial actuals versus forecast at a point in time or over time. Bar charts are obviously very similar to column charts, but are really good at showing a ranking. So you might want to show a ranking of revenue or forecast against a product or region. And a bar chart allows you to do that really well because you can vertically stack them. Line charts are best for time series relationships. The reason being, it's really easy to identify trends and patterns in a line chart, and it's also easy to spot very small variations. Pie charts are great, or they're good for showing kind of part to whole relationships, but because it's quite difficult to compare values in pie charts, so we do recommend using them with caution. It might be that a column chart is better in many cases. And just finally, mobile. Obviously, we've just launched our new mobile experience. And when thinking about mobile, if you have users that are likely to be using mobile a lot, like sales reps or execs, for example, then you might want to think about optimizing your apps for mobile first. And we actually call this practice mobile first in the design arena. And what that means is leveraging a lot of the principles we've already talked about, such as prioritize by importance and progressive disclosure, because obviously on mobile you have a lot less real estate on the screen, and so you can't throw everything onto one screen and expect a user to be able to come onto mobile and easily use it. So definitely use cards that link off to other pages so that they can explore the content. Be cognizant of where you're placing headings over cards on boards, because obviously when cards collapse into a single column on mobile, you want to make sure the headings are kind of still related to the content underneath. And finally, we do recommend just using one application for both your web and your mobile experience in order to reduce kind of duplication of effort and reduce maintenance.
So we've talked a lot today about talking with our customers and user research, so we'd like to put this call out to you now. If you're not already a part of our user research program, we'd love to have you sign up. So as we said, we do a lot of interesting things and we get direct feedback from customers. So this might be a survey, it might be some design testing, we might come on site and do an interview with you. So in the chat area, at some point you'll be able to see a link to sign up to our user research program. Pam and I are pretty fun, so it's nice to chat with us sometimes. You might have, again, even met us at an event before, so whenever there's customer events, you'll usually find us out and about at events as well. So if you haven't signed up to our user research program, we'd love to have you do that as well. And also, we've made it easier in the new UX for you to provide feedback directly in the product. So as we were saying, we're constantly getting this feedback. So in the upper area of the new user experience, you can see there's a feedback button. That feedback comes directly to our team, and we'll be going through that and making sure that we're understanding how we can make the experience better for you. Same in mobile, I believe it's in the menu area. You can go in and see where you can provide feedback for the mobile experience. So we'd really like you to we welcome your feedback for that. So I think at this point we are ready to take some questions. So again, if you've got questions, we'd love to answer them for you. We'll go ahead and get started now on the questions that we have coming in from the chat.
Okay, we have a couple of good
I'm
questions
nervous to
here.
see them.
I'm looking at Alicia. So what was the most surprising thing you found in your research studies?
Oh, that's
That's a really good question.
yeah.
I don't know that it's surprising, but again, I think that it's interesting as a researcher because I think a lot of the times we forget that people are really at the center of all of these processes. So, again, we all work in a business, right? And so we're given tools and we're given things that we have to do. But a lot of times, really, when you just go out and talk to the customers, it's like, but this isn't how I want to do it. And I actually would really prefer this. So I think for me, it's always just understanding that actually the people who are doing these things have some really good ideas, and just the fact that maybe they'd never even been asked about it before, it's really useful to get that. So it's just kind of always bringing it back to that, kind of human-centered approach, I think is always really interesting.
I think it's also doing research, it really is a reality check, because we spend a lot of time internally working on designs and working through concepts, and we think, oh, of course, this is totally obvious.
Yeah.
And then you show it to someone and they're confused.
Yeah.
And it's just such a good reminder that, we can't design for ourselves. We really need to talk to users.
And the other thing, although what maybe not so much surprising, but I thought was really interesting, and we kind of touched on it earlier, was that through our research, we really did find there was such a diverse set of needs for our users. So Pam kind of talked about it, but we do have users that are just looking for something really simple, so they can come in, get their information or enter some data and get out. And then we do have those kind of users at the other end of the spectrum, really, the advanced users that are in Anaplan every day, wanting to kind of dig into all that data and do kind of rich analysis, and they're looking for kind of really powerful and flexible features. And that's a challenge for us to provide an experience that suits both. So that's something we're constantly trying to kind of get the balance right with.
Okay, we've got 2 more questions. So far we've seen examples of reports, but have you got examples of data entry screens?
So I don't mind taking that. So yeah, the screens that we had in the presentation they had some very nice examples of reports, so I'll admit that. But you can also use boards. Unfortunately, we don't have any in this presentation, but you can also use boards and publish editable fields or editable grids to boards. So it is possible to edit data on boards. Obviously, with the worksheet, you have a large grid experience that you can also make editable. So we recommend editing data via the grid on a worksheet. If you want to kind of edit drivers and assumptions, then that's where we think kind of editable fields are much better, which, as I mentioned, you can publish to boards, but on a worksheet, they're best kind of published to the right panel.
Okay, final question. What is the best way to provide feedback on the new experience?
I would say definitely so by using the button at the top, as we suggested before, or signing up to our user research program. Either one of those ways is a really great way. Also by going to events. So if there are user groups in your area, that's always a really great way. You can also use community to ask questions from other users and provide feedback there. So there's a lot of opportunities for you to be able to interact, and there's just different ways that you can do it. So yeah.
And we also would love to get feedback directly from our end users. So we do talk to a lot of model builders. So if you have that link to sign up for the user research program, you can share it with your end users as well, because we would love to get even more people like that involved. But yeah, again, as we said earlier, all the feedback that comes in through the product and through the mobile app comes directly to the teams, and we review it. We're getting it basically real time. Yeah. So we really do read your every feedback item that comes in, and it really shapes what we're doing. So keep giving us feedback.
Yeah, there's a really good quote that we had from a customer as well, who said that they felt like they were actually building the product with us because they had given us feedback, they saw us make changes and then deliver those changes. And it was just so incredible for them to see that actually, again, really working with our teams and helping to create a better experience for them. And that was really powerful for us as well, because that's what we were trying to achieve as well. So it's really makes us feel great as a team to know that, we're working in partnership with them. So yeah. Great.
And I think we're about out of time. We have a couple of questions we didn't get to, but we can answer them later through the forums. So check back later.
Yeah.
Anything else we want to add?
No, I think
there's,
that's
yeah, I know there's a lot of great content today, so check back in a few minutes. Engineering is up next, and I'm sure they'll have exciting things to talk about. So thank you, everybody. And
Thank you.
Yep, thanks for the opportunity.
Great, thanks.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Alicia, Pam, and Greg. So we really do encourage you, please join the user research program. Your feedback and your ideas and your input really can transform the platform to better suit your needs. So please do join us. The other thing is, do check out the community and learn about the new UX, learn our best practice and tips and tricks. We can't wait to see what you do with the new UX, so go for it, please. With that, I think we're going to take a 10-minute break now, and we'll see you back. So stretch your legs, grab a cup of tea, and we'll see you right back here in 10 minutes' time. All right, see you then. Thank you. Welcome back to User Groups Live here in the York Anaplan office. It's great to have you with us. So, quick reminder, please use the chat window to the left, your right, my left, if you want to post any questions or continue the conversation. Greg, Pam and Alicia will hop on now and continue the chat with you if you have any questions on their segment. So, a reminder, if you have any technical issues as well, please post a comment in the chat window or email communities@anaplan.com and we'll get back to you and help you get that sorted out. So, this next segment brings you behind the scenes into the engineering, QA, and level 3 support teams. So just how does a feature go from an idea into development and out released to you? And perhaps more importantly, how are features quality checked? So with that, let's find out more with Jason and Simon, who will then be followed by Nina and Harvey.
Welcome to the engineering section of User Groups Live. We're going to give you a sneak peek behind the curtain at how engineering works, and that will be followed by the QA and the level 3 section. So my name is Jason Simpson. I'm an engineering director based out of the York office. For the last couple of years we've been mostly focused on the new user experience, and I'm pleased to be able to share some of the ways that we've been working over the last couple of years with you today. I've been working at Anaplan for 3 years and thoroughly enjoyed all of my time here. It's a fantastic company to work for. And I'm joined here today by Simon Walton, who's the lead of the engineering productivity team. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I lead the engineering productivity team, where I'm a manager, and we're essentially the team that is responsible for looking after all of the what we call the build infrastructure behind Anaplan. So that is all of the software and infrastructure that takes the code from developers' laptops and sort of gets it towards what we call the production areas, and that is essentially into your hands. That's how you can think of that.
Excellent. Maybe you could give us a quick insight into a day of life of the engineer.
Yeah, sure. So at Anaplan we use what we call the agile methodology, or the agile way of working. So agile is essentially all about being responsive to customers' needs, shipping early and often. So Springboard, new user experience is a good example of that, whereby we had the new user experience in customers' hands quite quickly through kind of a beta program. And at least in engineering productivity team, we use an implementation of Agile that we call Kanban, which is this idea of sort of limiting the amount of work that you have as a priority at any one time. And that doesn't work for all engineering teams, but at least for us it works quite well, because it means that we can be very responsive. So we consider our customers, for example, to be largely people like you, for example, and your teams, who are the engineers trying to get things safely and efficiently into production. But your teams, for example, would not use Kanban, is that right?
Yeah, we use a Scrum methodology, which is basically where we break work into 2-week increments. Sometimes it's going to be shorter than that, sometimes it'll be longer, but we're always working in an iterative way as well. But we always plan for 2 weeks worth of work at a time. The Scrum ceremonies are basically we'll plan work in what we call a sprint planning ceremony, followed by daily stand-ups where we synchronize what we're doing every day. We also do what we call backlog refinement, where we're just looking ahead and estimating the size of the work so that we can give good roadmap indications to our customers. And then probably the most important part of any agile process is the learning. So at the end of every iteration, we're constantly reflecting on how a particular iteration has gone, how we can do better next time. And we don't necessarily wait for that 2-week window. There's learning opportunities everywhere, all day, every day. We pick up on those and we relentlessly go after improving the way that we work.
So it's all about continuous improvement as well, isn't it? And
absolutely.
We're quite keen on this idea of sort of shipping often, which is something that actually has been exemplified largely by the user experience lately. I was wondering if you could expand a little bit upon how we manage that.
Absolutely. So there's been some very key changes to the way that we engineer for the new user experience. When we started off this project, it was not only about building the right thing for our customers, but building it in the right way. And that means a significant amount of automated testing so that we're fully confident in every single change that's made by an engineer. And also deployment automation, that's another key change for us. If you can try to visualize what happens when a developer makes a change, it'll go from, it'll build the software first, it'll go through a test phase where it's going to critically examine whether or not a particular build is good to go live. And then once it passes that test phase, we go into a deployment phase. And that's where we've made some other significant improvements, which allows us to ship our software a couple of times a week at the moment, but we're hoping to be able to do that even more responsively. On the deployment side, we can do that without downtime, and that's definitely a really key thing for us in terms of not impacting the customer experience while we're making these changes. We need to be able to ship those in a way that doesn't affect what people are currently doing in the tool. And so that's been some of the stuff that the engineering productivity team have helped us with in terms of rolling out those deployment technologies.
Yeah, and so Anaplan have made significant investments in what we call container orchestration technologies pioneered by people like Google over the past 5 to 10 years. I don't know how long they've been going now. And the central idea is the way that we have been working historically is that we have this quite sort of constrained build system whereby engineers have to go down this sort of rigid pathway towards production, and there's a lot of manual testing, very, very thorough testing, but it's quite labor intensive in many ways, whereas what containers bring us is this idea that you can define a kind of a virtual machine, almost a very lightweight virtual machine in which you can run all of your tests, and it's as if it's running in the customer's hands essentially. And so developers get this incredible flexibility and reassurance that what they're actually testing is the thing that actually goes towards these production areas. And we've made a lot of investment in this technology within our production estate, so into our data centers, and also in our build infrastructure as well, to enable all of these automated tests to happen. And as Jason said, hopefully that will result in, in the near future, we'll be looking at more and more kind of zero downtime deployments and improved scaling and resilience and things like this. But along those lines, I mean, one thing that I imagine a lot of customers wonder is if they are seeing changes like every day, which is possible right now with our current process, then it can be quite difficult to, what it's like when people change things, when Facebook change like a button or something and then it's not the same when they click on it. And people tend to get quite upset by that, understandably, because their user experience has changed and all the workflows that they experience every day have changed. So it's probably worth talking about like how we plan on communicating that change back to customers and what they can expect to see changing sort of on a daily or a weekly basis in the future.
Absolutely. So one of the key things to get across here is the fact that even though we are able to release our software more readily, we don't anticipate large-scale changes for our customer experience without any sort of notification to our customers. What this does enable is us to provide a much better customer service, and
this is a key shift for us in the new user experience. We're able to take the bugs that are annoying you, those little usability issues, or even some enhancement requests that we've had, and we're able to get those things out the door in your hands much more quickly and very safely too. Big feature releases, we use what we call feature flagging, so we ensure that those big features are not in your hands until we are absolutely ready. The customers know that we're going to be making those changes. We know that the field and our internal teams are ready to support those changes, and that's when we think about turning those big features on. So there's not really going to be much change for those big features in the way that we work.
And feature flagging also gives us the ability to, for example, roll out changes more gradually, doesn't it? Sort of enable different features for different customers in a more safe way. And
yeah. Yeah, and the gradual thing is probably key here for us internally as well. In engineering, shipping more frequently, smaller changes is actually like a really good risk mitigation strategy. If we're shipping code that's been planned and developed for, say, 2 to 3 months, that's actually quite hard for us to remember what we did 2 months ago. So that can be a bit more intensive in terms of diagnosing those issues. However, if we're just shipping the changes that we made yesterday or the day before, we know absolutely what code we changed. We know how we can support those changes, and if there are any issues that arise with it, which unfortunately in software bugs are sort of unavoidable, how do we respond to that? And that's what we're optimizing for here, being able to provide a much better level of customer service to our customers.
Mm-hmm. So what is it actually like working in the York office? Because I imagine a lot of customers will be interested in our engineering setup. So we've got 4 actually engineering sites now at the moment. York was the first engineering site. It's our current research and development headquarters, if you like. It's where the whole Anaplan thing started in York. We're a Yorkshire company originally, and the engineering is sort of centred in York. What is it actually like on a daily basis coming into this office and being an engineer?
Oh, it's electric. There's so much energy in the building, a real appetite to service our customers' needs. And I think there's just that little extra level of pride in this office, because this is where Anaplan was founded and created. So we've got that history, which really gives us a sense of pride as we're working here. I think it's excellent cultural aspects to
the culture. Actually is fantastic, I have to say. We've literally had somebody leave for another opportunity and come back because they realised actually the culture in Anaplan was actually what they wanted all along. And if you look at where we are now and where we're heading, it's quite an exciting time at the moment at Anaplan, isn't it? We're making some amazing sort of changes behind the scenes. We've made some key hires, I know, in engineering over the past year or so, all around this theme of transforming the way that we do engineering Anaplan, and already we've seen massive benefits. I mean, from just the conception of the new user experience product going into production, on a sort of daily, weekly basis. We've made lots of improvements like that. Where do you see Anaplan engineering being in, say, a year's time, 2 years' time, 5 years' time? What sort of things do you see happening at the moment?
Excellent question. I think we are getting to this, well, one of the key focuses for us over the next, in the coming years, is to be able to ship without downtime across the whole estate. That's obviously been pioneered by the new user experience, and now we're ready to take that to the next level and be able to have much less service disruption for our customers, particularly in the planned nature. So that's going to be a big change, and that, as I mentioned earlier, does allow us to provide a much better level of customer service. So we'll not only be an R&D group, we'll be a customer service group as well.
It's all about kind of expanding our customer first ethos that you guys will already be quite familiar with, but we're going to be sort of expanding it deeper into engineering, if you like. So the whole idea behind what we call continuous integration and continuous deployment is that engineers will sort of be a lot more engaged with customers, engaged with the issues that they face every day, the kinds of the features that they're after. Yeah. So engineers will essentially be a lot closer to customers. And we're hoping to roll out things like, engineers going to more sort of community events and things like that, hopefully. It's just a much nicer way of working. Ultimately, will satisfy the customer more frequently, perhaps.
Yeah, it's absolutely the most rewarding thing, getting that feedback from customers, getting to CPX events and things like that. That's what we really love to do.
Because I know you guys have had good feedback for the new user experience in some of those community events so far.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think we've got some questions to answer. Speaking of customer feedback, so
yes.
Should we get the iPad?
So. Okay, we've got a couple of questions, which is really nice. It's nice that you guys are engaging with us. So we have, assuming there is an idea from community which is valid, accurate, popular, what's the typical timeline to have this idea implemented?
It's a good question. So obviously it depends on what the idea is, and there's different levels of effort required to engineer different solutions to different things. But one thing that we have done, as mentioned in this session, is we're optimizing that lead time. We don't want to be, once we've got that idea developed and ready, we want to minimize the time that takes to get into your hands. So and take a lot of the weight out of being able to do that. We don't want to wait for Saturday downtime windows. We want to be able to ship that as readily as possible. So all the changes we've made are absolutely so that we can respond to those requests as much as possible. I can give an example of earlier this year, which might help. We had a feature request for a customer that was looking to go live with the new user experience, but they were missing a couple of key features / enhancements. We basically went back to the engineering teams and we said, here's the gap. They need this doing by such and such a time, and the engineering teams found a way to get that done, and we were able to get that out the door in time for those customers. So good example there of where we're able to be really responsive.
And having this kind of feature flagging mechanism there is critical, because it means that we can have all of that working code all fully tested in production, and we can just enable that feature whenever we like, essentially, and it doesn't even have to be us that actually enables that feature. It can be done by other parties, which is really nice. We have a related question, which is, what is the best way to keep track of what new features are on the development roadmap?
Excellent question. So the roadmap, I believe, is published. We talk about that a lot at our community events and CPX events and things like that. So that's a good way to keep up to date. We do post back to the community with what's coming and what we're doing sort of in the immediate term and what we've just done. So that's a good way to keep track. Probably worth posting that question for the product team, who I think are on immediately after us as well, who are responsible for communicating those changes as well.
Yeah, and before we leave off, we do have a call to action. We were talking earlier about having change go into production on a regular basis, and what we'd like to know from our customers is, how do you guys want to know about that change? So in other words, should we have a page that is published with all of the changes, no matter how minor they are? We changed the color of this button from red to green or whatever. Or do you just want to be notified about the large scale changes? Do you want a feed you can subscribe to? Do you want to be emailed every single day? So right after this, go on to the Ideas Exchange and post your ideas around this. We are taking feedback, because right now it's we've got some ideas ourselves, I think, but it's quite a difficult problem in the software industry at the moment, is how you notify people of change when you're making change quite often, right?
Absolutely, great one.
Okay. We got one more question. What is the best way to track if a bug confirmed via instance/L3 is getting fixed or included into platform update release?
Well, I don't want to speak out of turn on that one. I think our level 3 team would be best to answer that, and they're coming right up after our session. So on that note, I think we're gonna wrap up, and thank you for joining us. It's been great to speak to you all about how engineering works at Anaplan.
Yeah, thank you.
That was a great session with Jason and Simon.
That's very good. Let's hope we can be as good.
Hi, my name's Nina Dean. I'm head of the Global Level 3 support team. I've been with Anaplan just over 5 years, and I'm based here in the York office.
And hello, I'm Harvey Whitford. I'm the Senior QA Manager here in York, and I manage a team of QA analysts. I've been with Anaplan for 18 months now. So, Nina, tell us about L3.
So Level 3 support is part of the Global Customer Care organisation. We work alongside the product support and hypercare teams to provide a kind of consolidated customer support experience. Our frontline product support teams receive about 600 cases a week, of which about 7% of those are transferred through to the Level 3 support team. And they're usually kind of the more technical, complex issues that need a bit more of a deeper dive into the product or the platform to be able to diagnose or resolve those. And our analysts are positioned around the globe so that we can provide follow the sun support. They're also trained up. It takes about 6 months to train an L3 analyst to be able to support all the features of the product. However, the product's so vast now and growing so quickly that we need to have kind of subject matter experts for each major area of the product, and we bring in those guys for additional support for those most complex issues. As a customer, you're probably interested in how we prioritise your issues, and that happens at that front line when you first log that case with product support. There's 4 different severity levels, but what makes a real significant difference to us is if you can, as a customer, if you can explain to us how that issue is impacting your users and how it's impacting your business processes so that we can more accurately assess the criticality of those issues. So the product support teams are great and they will try to resolve your issue, but if they're unable to do that, then they'll pull in the senior analysts who have slightly more kind of deeper skills within the product. And if they're unable to resolve, they'll gather the information needed to then transfer it through to the Level 3 support team. When a case reaches Level 3, we actually reprioritise it. So we'll take into account all the information that you as the customer has given our product support team, and we'll review that, but we'll also review it in terms of how we think that particular issue may potentially impact other customers or our production environment based on known issues and things, or we may reassess that severity and increase it if we think we need to. Our absolute priority though is to make sure that all customers are up and running at all times and that you're able to complete your business processes successfully. We may need to bring in expertise from other teams like QA or the engineers to be able to help us to do that. but ultimately level 3 own that resolution for that case, so we'll make sure that we resolve the issue by whatever means that we can. So additionally, part of our role is to be the voice of the customer internally. I like to say that we represent the customer to engineering and engineering to the customer, and we're kind of like those middlemen that have the relationships with all of the teams. So we work very closely with customer success, QA, engineers, product, ops. Our analysts also know the product kind of end to end, back to front. We understand how the customers interact with the product and the product with the platform. Given all that knowledge and those relationships gives us more kind of a holistic view to be able to judge the severity of the issue. And then we take that to the triage meetings that we hold with the dev leads and the product owners on a weekly basis, where we work through all the customer issues that we've seen that week, and we'll prioritise, come up with a strategy for each, and then level 3 will then feed that back to the customer. So about 60% of what we do is casework. Kind of the majority of the rest of the time we spend it on project work and what we call supportability. And supportability is how we refer to the work that we do pre-release to ensure that every change, feature, service is fully supportable before it reaches our customers. And we also make sure that all the support teams are ready to be able to respond to any questions or concerns that they might get. So we get involved at the early stages with the R&D teams, and we'll put our requirements forward for that. So that might include specific logging or tools that we need to be able to copy data from customer environments to our environment to be able to investigate, or it might be providing guidance on how a feature or something might interact with the current production processes. But level 3 are involved through the entire release process. And we represent the customer and support experience at each stage. And because we're involved in that entire release journey, we have really close relationships with all those teams. So as well as triaging, we will meet to review changes for upcoming releases. So for example, we meet with QA and engineers and product, and we go through the detail of each change, and we discuss the impact that it may have either direct or indirectly on a customer, the potential impact it might have on the production environment. We'll give guidance on what kind of testing we think might be required given our knowledge of how customers interact with the product. And we'll also advise on what needs to be done in order to bring the support teams up to speed for that change. And then once we've done that part, we'll work with the tech ops teams, our technical operations team, to ensure that the customer impact is appropriately assessed and accounted for during the deployment stages. We also work regularly with our tech ops team, very closely actually, to ensure that the production environment is always running smoothly. So for example, hardware issues are a collaboration between the team to ensure minimal impact on the customer. And both teams, for example, have alerting and monitoring in place to be able to detect major issues or bubbling trends that might occur. So to wrap that up, we're kind of 100% customer first, but to be able to truly do that, we need to work very closely with the R&D teams. And as I said, one of those teams is QA, who incidentally have just pinched one of our analysts.
Yes, thank you very much.
So Harvey, how do you and your team work for our customers?
Righty-ho, so thank you, Nina. So QA, so what do we do? To begin with, it's probably worth me explaining a little bit how we set our teams out, what our mission is, and then about how we work and how we interact with various of the other teams. So we have 3 teams globally. Here in York, we have a team who concentrates on core, the new user experience, as Jason mentioned earlier, and also core client and personal save dashboards. We have a team in San Francisco and also a team in London, and our director of QA is based in London. She has to travel around all 3 sites, so spends a lot of the time in the air, unfortunately. We are independent teams, but we're within the engineering organisation, so we have a bit more of an independent voice over whether we think a change has reached the appropriate quality, which is important, and we work very closely with L3 to ensure that the change meets the expected standard. Now, as regards our mission, is to ensure change is delivered to production with high quality. So it's delivered fast, but appropriate quality. And if we have to delay a release to get a change into the right level of quality, then we will do so. But we prefer to work much earlier with the other teams to ensure that that is reached early. As part of our role, we champion quality delivery in everything we do, and that means we have to interact with so many different teams. And as Simon and Jason mentioned earlier, continuous improvement is a very large focus at Anaplan. So we're looking to improve on everything that we actually do. So incremental improvements to raise the standard of what we do for our customers. But what do the actual QA do? What do we do day to day? So here are a few of the points that we concentrate upon. We analyse and test the impact of proposed change to production and for our customers. So we're looking at the range of ways that our customers use Anaplan for the different business purposes and business scenarios, and then we are testing the platform to ensure that it will operate as intended. We design test scenarios with engineering so that these can be automated, so that we're driving towards this concept of continuous integration and ultimately continuous delivery with very, very high automated test coverage. We test and sign off fixes for defects, and we very often demonstrate those fixes to L3 as a further validation to ensure that we've tested not only the issue but around the issue and tested it in different ways, because Anaplan being so flexible, you can use the product in so many different ways in different businesses. A number of the QA team have been at Anaplan for many, many years, so they have deep, deep knowledge. One of them's been here over 9 years now, so one of the very early team back in what was it, 2010 it was. So they have very, very deep knowledge of how to build Anaplan models. So what they often do is they're building these realistic test models so that can be used during development by the engineers, so that we can test change early with very realistic models. And of course, as Anaplan becomes more and more used, it's very important that we performance and load test sanitized models. So these are customer models that are sanitized, and also synthetic models, so that we can optimize the performance of Anaplan's platform and services, so that it continues to operate at very high standards for our customers. Who do we work with? We have our own honeycomb, where we interact with a number of different departments. Our analysts are embedded with the software engineering teams, so that they're at all the, as it were, all the agile ceremonies that Jason mentioned earlier, like the stand-ups, the refinements and the retros. They work with product owners, and you're going to hear from a couple of product owners soon. So we do early analysis of change to understand whether the change that's been proposed is going to deliver the right value to the customers. They work with program over scheduling releases, so that we look to combine the right change appropriately for a release, so that we can de-risk change to production. We work, as we mentioned, very closely with L3 over a number of different things. This includes investigating customer issues, reviewing how we release software to production, evaluating the risk of change to production, be that software change or infrastructure change. And we work very closely with the user experience team, as you'll have heard from Alicia and Greg and Pam, over testing the designs, the proposed designs for user experience, and to ensure compliance for accessibility. And finally, we also work with the content teams to ensure that the content that's released with releases and to Anapedia is correct and accurate and appropriate. So that sort of gives you an idea of how we fit within the organisation and the different teams that we interact with. We've got a couple of calls to action as well that we'd like to pick out, because getting feedback from you, our customers, is absolutely crucial to how we can test the product and ensure that we're delivering the right change to production. So do you want to start with one of yours?
Yeah, so it would be great if everybody could subscribe to our status.anaplan.com page for real-time platform updates. but also try and subscribe to known issues on the community. That will give you the latest information for workarounds and fixes.
Yes, we also would like people to sign up for when we have beta programs. That might be to do with design and how we come out with new designs for, say, like we did for the user experience, or for programs such as how we scale Anaplan with the larger models program, which is very important that we get the feedback from you and we get it early. Now, before we end our session, we've got a few questions from our customers.
Yes, so we've got one question here. So what is the best way to track if a bug confirmed via an incident or L3 is getting fixed or included into a platform update release? So if you have logged a case with support, then you should be receiving that feedback through the case. We will also notify you via release notes for the What's New blog for the releases of all the fixes that are included and all the case numbers for those as well, so you can see whether your fix has been included within that release. We are currently working on improving our communication around this to make that much earlier for you, so that you know more, definitely what's coming and when. So that's in progress, so hopefully you should see some improvements with that over the next few months as well.
Okay, so I think for our session we're ready to hand over to the next group. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much for joining us.
And stay tuned for product session after the break.
Thank you very much, Jason and Simon, Nina and Harvey. So our status and known issues pages are there to help you with updates, workarounds, and fixes. And the support site has answers to a range of questions and can connect you to our customer care team. So up next, we would like to share a little video with you about our Anaplan values and how we have lived our values over the last year. Now, I want you to know that this is not scripted. These are the real stories of some of the most amazing people who work here at Anaplan. And the values that we have really inform everything we do. And because of these great values, we attract great people to work at Anaplan. And that's why Anaplan keeps getting better and better as a product and as a great experience. So with that, I really hope you enjoy our Anaplan video.
Before I started at Anaplan, I often was met with the automatic rejection letter. So I decided to take a pretty drastic step. In the Minneapolis Skyway, I held up a sign which said, "On a mission, launch career, take a resume." That is actually how I found my job at Anaplan.
Because we are the pioneers in the connected planning space, it's imperative to be tenacious in everything we do.
Open to me means being open to ideas, open to people.
Anaplan creates an environment for employees to be able to deal in truths.
And that drives the whole organization forward.
My team is very distributed across the globe. What we do to stay open is we hold virtual working sessions with each other.
One of the things that comes to mind for me is being really open with our customers, even if it's bad news.
Anaplan recognizes that we are all unique and fabulous individuals.
When I came out as transgender and decided to start my transition from female to male, I felt really comfortable in talking to my colleagues, and the feedback I got was fantastic. Everyone was so supportive, so excited to be part of this journey with me. And I really feel like I can bring my authentic self to work.
It doesn't matter what team you're in, it doesn't matter where you're from.
When you're trying to solve some of the most complex problems in the world, you need a diversity of thought. So being inclusive and making sure that we hear all of those different opinions and perspectives helps us to come up with better solutions.
In November 2017, my husband was diagnosed with terminal cancer, and we lost him in January of this year. Because we are a values-based organization, my family and I were supported, we were loved, we were reached out to. I've never worked anywhere else where I could have come through this experience employed, period, let alone not drowning in medical debt, not having lost my house, not having a job to come back to.
Being creative, I'm able to exhibit that every day through the freedom that I have to dress the way I feel in my heart and still be seen as a professional in my workplace.
Here at Anaplan, we have the freedom to think creatively when we close deals.
Creative is about solving problems in new and interesting ways that can make a real difference.
Each day is a new learning experience because I'm surrounded by some extraordinary individuals.
Flexibility of working at Anaplan offers me the opportunity to work on creative aspirations that I have outside of the company, but then bring them back into Anaplan.
And without creativity, Anaplan wouldn't be where it is today.
There are no knowledge hoarders at Anaplan. Everybody here is
working together to ensure that we achieve a greater outcome.
I'm really proud to have worked with all of IT across multiple teams in workplace services and other departments to open 4 new offices in a 2.5-month period. We worked across multiple time zones, geographies, and I'm really proud to have been part of one larger team.
We need people who can reach cross boundaries and come together to make sure that we all succeed as one.
A-shaped people start with our customers.
A-shaped people think big
and act bold. A-shaped people win with speed and innovation.
A-shaped people act like owners.
I'm an A-shaped person.
We are A-shaped people.
Well, I really hope you enjoyed that. So, next up, we have Change is Here, the new UX development. So, the new UX, I hope you've heard about it. We are tremendously excited to tell you more about it. But how is the new UX different? And what does it mean to your models? And what does it mean to Anaplan's release cycle? Well, here to tell us more about it are Steve and Dave.
Hello and welcome to this session on the new user experience user groups live from York. So my name is Steve Prendergast. I'm a product manager here at Anaplan, and for the last 18 months to 2 years I've been working on the new user experience. So what we're going to do in this session is we're going to talk a bit about why we've done the new user experience. We're going to give a brief demo, and then we're going to go through some tips and tricks on how to get started in the new user experience, as well as talk about some of the things that we're currently working on. And so also presenting with me today, we've got Dave.
Hi, I'm Dave Waller, also a product manager based here in New York. I work very closely with Steve on the new UX.
Okay, so why did we build a new user experience for Anaplan? So we wanted to make our user experience for end users more engaging, so bringing people to the right place at the right time. We want to make it more collaborative, so people are working off the same data, the same plans across the same pages. And we wanted to make it more personalised, so people can make customizations to their pages or their screens to make it more pertinent to the job that they need to do. And finally, we wanted to make it seamless across different screen resolutions, different devices, including a mobile app. So as part of that, we've delivered a number of components that make up the new user experience. So the first of these is a new user interface. So many of you have probably seen this already, but as you can see, a lot more modern look and feel with different cards that we've got which present the different data pulled out from the model. We've also developed a mobile app. So this is available today to download from the Google or the Apple Store, and anything you build within the new UX is immediately available to view and use within the mobile app as well. And we're also currently working on a new home page or home experience which will bring together the new user experience as well as the models within the solutions that you have built out today. So the user experience, the web interface is made up of two different types of pages that we have. So the first is a board page. So the idea is this is more like a traditional dashboard where you might have your high-level KPIs or your SLAs, and you can drill down on one of these cards in a board into a worksheet where you do more of your detailed analysis and planning, such as filtering your grid, for example, or sorting to do that analysis. We've also simplified the design experience so that there's more consistency in the different cards within the pages. So this allows it to work better on different screen resolutions and devices. So that's a bit about the front end, but I also wanted to talk a little bit about the back end as well. So we've developed the new user experience from the ground up using more modern technologies. So we've taken a component-based architecture. So this means we can do more things in parallel, which means we can reduce the cycle to get out critical changes and features to you, our customers. We also have over 10,000 automated tests, and we performance test the new UX on a daily basis. And it's much more capable of dealing with higher traffic and throughput, and also has high availability and redundancy and resiliency built in. And one of the other great features of the new UX is it gives us the capability to do zero downtime releases. So we can release often lots of changes or updates without impacting any work for our end users. So let's talk a bit about the timelines of the new UX. So we actually delivered a beta version of the new user experience at the back end of last year. And then we ran a period of 6 months in beta where we had around 60 customers playing around with it, trying it out, giving us feedback. And then we had an open early access to all customers, CPX in San Francisco in October. And then we ran that for a few months. Sorry, that was in June rather. And then we ran that for a few months. And then we announced the general availability of the new user experience in October in our London CPX. And actually between that time in the announcement at CPX in June and October, we released an additional 29 new features, which just shows the velocity that we can achieve with the new user experience. So I wanted to talk a bit about the new UX framework and how it works. So we have what we call in the new UX apps. So here you have, and an app is like a collection of pages which might solve a particular business process or use case. So here we have an incentive compensation management app, and then here we have an FP&A app. And the idea is you have a number of pages within those apps, and each page can point at a single model. So a user could navigate from one page to another page within the app, and in the background they'd be transitioning from one model to another model. So they no longer need to log out of a model and then log back into a model if they happen to have a task across the two models. We're also working on a homepage, which Dave will talk about shortly, and this basically allows you to navigate direct to one of your pages in your app. We've also got recents, and you can favourite pages, but you can also log in to a model directly as well if you need to, because you might have existing solutions within a model. The other great thing about the new user experience is it's effectively a presentation layer that you can sit on the top of all your existing models, so all your structure and your logic and your formula can all remain in place, and you just can put the new UX as a presentation layer on top of that. Okay, so let's jump into a quick demo now and give you an idea of the two different page types and how they can work together in the new user experience. Okay, just need to sign back into, so if I go to apps, so this will take me to the list of apps within the new user experience. So I'm interested in a reporting app, and I'm going to start with a board here which is a headcount capacity example. So at the top here I've got 3 KPI cards, and this shows my projected capacity for my sales team. So I have a projected capacity of 21.6 million, but a target of 23. So I have a negative variance there of 8.6%. And I can see the trend here over the chart that I'm consistently below the target for the whole quarter. So the idea is to get the capacity on the line or above the target. So I do this by drilling down into a worksheet. And this is where I would start to do my detailed analysis and planning. So I can see there I've got my negative variance across the quarters. And I can pull in additional information from my insights panel here on the right hand side. So I could pull out a bigger view of the visual, which I had on my board page. But I could also pull in my capacity by role. So I have my junior, mid-level and senior salespeople, and I can see what their targets are overall for each quarter. And I might expect more from my senior salespeople. So I can actually up their target, and then that will use break back to break back across the different quarters, and you can see that the red is starting to go more orange and yellow, and I can pull in my other visual, and this saves you scrolling around lots of big dashboards, because you can just pull in the different pieces of information you want to work on into your working panel. So you can see I'm over the target in some areas but not everywhere, so I'm still not quite there. So I can now look at my ramp profile. And again, I might expect my senior people to ramp up quicker, so I can update their ramp percentage for each month. As I start to do that, as you expect with Anaplan, that's updating all the data within the model and all the aggregations around that in real time. So now if I go back to my board page, I can see my variance has now gone to positive 5%, which is a lot better, and my capacity is now above my target. So there's an example of where you've got the high level board page at the top, and you can drill down into the worksheet where you do your planning and analysis. So at the moment, today you have to be a page builder to build out pages within an app, but we have added the ability to create my pages as well. So this means any user can create their own page. They don't need to rely on the model builder or the page builder to make page tweaks for them. So you can save an existing page as your personal copy and then make adjustments, or you can go to the My Pages area where you can create your own page from scratch. So I'm now quickly just going to create a board page. I'll show you how that works. So I'm going to call it my forecast board. You select the workspace that you want to pull the data from, and then you select the model, and then you create the page, and that will take you into the page designer. So we have a number of cards at the top here, such as the grid cards, the chart cards, etc., which you can drag on and then point at the particular module you want to pull the data from, and Dave will talk us through that a bit shortly. But you can also, any of those cards you can create, you can save as a card template for future use. So this is really valuable for end users because they may not understand the structure of the modules within the model. So they can just simply drag the particular cards they're interested in here. So my top 5 accounts forecast, top 5 accounts grid, and then a account forecast grid. And you just drag these onto your board. And then you can configure the layout. And then simply publish that. And then within a few seconds, you've created a board that you can use to track the plan or report against. Okay, I'm now going to hand over to Dave, who's going to talk in a bit more detail around the worksheets and how you can drill into the information around that.
Awesome, thanks Steve. Yeah, so as Steve says, I'm going to take you a little bit deeper into what you can do with the new UX. We're going to look at a worksheet and some of the features there, and also how we can start to build up some of these views based on the data in our model. So I'll use our awesome new search tool, and I will search for one of our pages. Now this is searching across all of the apps I have access to, and is returning all of those appropriate pages. So the one I'm after is this one. I can click that, and that'll take me straight to that page within that app. Now this is a worksheet, so perfect for more detailed analysis, diving deeper into the data. I can configure the page selectors as you'd expect. Let's go for Americas. And that gives us our grid of data. We do, of course, have access to our additional insights on the side. Those additional visualizations that show us a little bit more about the data. But when we're working with the grid, we have some additional awesome features that we can tap into. We can access cell history. We can filter directly within that worksheet. We can sort, and we can also run actions. These could be imports, exports, or in the new UX, they can be forms. We can build forms to allow users to insert data directly into their model. As an example here, we have an add account form, which prompts the user for those additional properties. They can insert that data directly into their model really easily. Now the build process that Steve showed you is great if you have templates built already, or if your model already has module views that shape the data how you need it. That's not always the case though. There are some instances where you may want to craft something in a new UX that isn't a perfect fit to what's in your model. The new UX can help you out. We have the concept of custom views. So if we have to edit the grid on the worksheet as a page builder, we have access to our safe module views, but also our custom views. This gives us a list of all of the modules we have access to. And then within here, we can do things like pivot, filter, sort, show hide, and coming very soon, the ability to apply conditional formatting. So I'll do a quick pivot for us. We can move time onto context selectors, counts onto rows, and line items on columns. And you can see we get a real-time preview of that. We can do show and hide to reduce the content on screen, but what I'll show you is the conditional formatting. So we'll select previous year sales, hit conditional formatting, and we can start to define how that should look. I can pick colors, and then I can apply values. So if we just pivot that view again, here we go, previous year sales, we say 5,000 to 50,000, and then pick our colors. And as we apply that, our conditional formatting applies to our grid as you'd expect. Now, as Steve said, our velocity of releasing new features on the new UX is greatly increased. And I'll show you one of the new features, which is a new visualization. We can switch to Morse, apply that, and then rather than using background colors for conditional formatting, we can render scaled visuals within those cells as well. Now this will be exclusive to the new UX and another great reason to move some of your applications across. Then as we publish that, those visuals are available in our worksheet. Now I'll also show you a quick preview of the new homepage. It's really important that our users have a really intuitive route into their Anaplan content, whether that's in the classic experience or the new user experience, and our new homepage will allow them to do that. It'll give them access to the pages, apps, favorites, and models they have access to in a really intuitive and simple way. So hopefully you're really excited by what we've shown you, but you may be thinking, how do we start to implement this? Now we've worked with customers over the last 12 months to really understand some of the implementation challenges, and we want to share some tips and tricks with you. One of the things that has worked really well with customers is drawing out a sitemap, identifying key personas and key user journeys and starting to map those out visually. It then becomes quite easy to trace those routes think about how you structure your data and how you lead users from maybe high-level KPI and trend dashboards through to those more detailed worksheets. Another great thing to do is focus on the key requirements that deliver maximum value. Identify those flows through the application that really deliver that value. The new UX is so quick and easy to build with that you'll be able to demonstrate value within your implementation really quickly based on the data you already have in your models. Now I've shown you how to build some views, and you may be thinking, what should I use, custom views or module views? Module views are great because if you have them built already in your model, they're really easy to implement in the UX. And if you change it in the model, that change flows through to everywhere it's used in the new UX. But as you've seen, custom views bring a load of power and flexibility in the new UX. You can pivot, you can sort, you can filter, you can apply conditional formatting, all without the help of a model builder. Puts greater flexibility and power in the hands of the page builders and the process experts. And as we move forward, our new features that we build into defining these views will be available only for custom views. So our recommendation is to give custom views a try. We think they're going to work really well for you as you move forward.
Okay, thanks Dave. So I wanted to talk a bit about the change management and development process with the new user experience as well. So we've released features to allow you to duplicate a page, move a page, and also change the page, change the model a page points at. So this can help, for example, if you have a dev model and a set of dev pages, and you make those changes in the dev model and you make those changes to your development environment in the UX, you could then sync across the changes in your dev model, and then you could make those changes in the dev app or the dev page, and then move that page to the production environment and then point that page at the production model. So this allows you to have a change management process. So at the moment you have to do that on an individual page level, but we are also working on a feature to allow you to copy an app and repoint the models that app points at as well. So the other thing you need to be aware of to get started in the new user experience is you need to be a page builder role. So this is a new role that we've introduced. In order to make yourself or someone a page builder, you have to do this via the administrator. So you need to be a tenant admin to get to administrator. So if you don't know who your tenant admin is, then you can contact support Anaplan and they will tell you who your tenant admin is or assign someone as a tenant admin. You basically go into the access control area, select the user, and then tick that person, and that will make them a page builder, and then they're good to go for building pages within apps. So I talked a bit about My Pages, and we talked about how you could create a My Page using card templates. So to create My Pages, you don't need to be a page builder, so any user can create a page. So the idea is the app pages, you need to be a page builder, so this gives you the central governance and control, and that you can lock down pages that no one else can change. But then you can take a copy of one of these pages and then make your adjustments, or you can create your own My Page from scratch. And those My Pages can be created either within an app, so you get the inbuilt app navigation, or they can be a freestanding page outside of the app. So we talked a bit about card templates, so we'd also recommend using card templates. So this encourages consistency across the solution because you're reusing the same cards. It also accelerates the build process. So for example, you could have a KPI card template and then just copy that out, and then for each card choose which line item you want that KPI to display. They're also particularly useful, as we mentioned, with My Pages, as the model builder could provide a library of cards such as a P&L statement or a cash flow statement or a forecast chart, and then users could just drag that onto a board and create the page like I showed in the demo. I also wanted to talk a bit about access control. So the new user experience, it respects all permissions and access control that you have in the model, from the very granular dynamic cell access through to selective access, and then the module role access. So if you go to a page and then your card points at a module that you do not have access to, then you won't see any data within that card. Currently though, you can see the page name, so we're adding a feature that allows you to restrict the access to the page itself. So how this will work is, by default, all pages will be available to everyone, but you can choose to restrict a particular page. So you do that by choosing restrict users, and then a list of all the roles within the model that page points at will be listed, and then you simply tick the roles that you want to have access to that page, and then apply that, and that page will then be restricted to those particular roles. Okay, so I just wanted to talk about the mobile. So I'm not going to say much about the mobile other than that we do have a mobile app, so everything that you do build in the new user experience is also available straight away within the mobile. We do have a dedicated session on the mobile app on the User Groups Live on the 14th, so if you are interested in the mobile app, then make sure you register and watch that one. So the mobile app is currently read-only, but we are going to make it writable, and that's something that we're working on very shortly. Okay, so just some tips and overview for the whole session. So the first piece is the homepage, which Dave talked about. So this will be bringing together both the classic and the user experience, so you can navigate either to a model or to one of the pages within the user experience. Dave also talks about how it might be good to sketch out your sitemap, so identify those key personas and users and how they might use in the user experience. Also think about whether you want to use a module view or a custom view. So the module views obviously could have the advantage that they may already exist in your model, so you can reuse them. But then if you need to make those tweaks, you may need to jump between the classic and the new user experience. Whereas if you use custom views, you can stay within user experience and build things without that, as well as take advantage of new features that we're working on, such as Morse, which Dave showed in the demo. And new features going forward will be continued to be adding to the new user experience going forward. We also talked a bit about the use of card templates, so a really powerful way of having consistency as well as accelerating the build process, and incredibly useful for end users creating their My Pages and boards. And then I talked a bit about the page access, which we'll be releasing shortly. So you can start to think about what roles you have within the model today and add to them or build them out in preparation for when we release the page level access control and you move over to the new user experience. The final point is, if you are building a page for mobile, everything you build in the UX is immediately available in the mobile with no additional work, but you might want to think about the design of the page so that it suits more the mobile layout.
And Lee's got some really exciting things to share with you in his mobile session on the 14th from London.
Okay, well, thank you all for listening. There'll be some call-outs coming up in the session, but in the meantime, we have had some questions, which is great. So we'll just take a pause while we look at those questions. Hello, so we've had some questions in, which is great. So the first question we've had is, how would the drill down option work for the KPI view? Would it automatically go into a worksheet? So this is actually, it's configured manually. So you would go into a card and then you get the opportunity to make that navigable. So you basically have a list of all your pages within the app, and then you can choose which worksheet or board that you want that navigation to go to. So it doesn't have to be a worksheet. You can also drill down into another board page, so you could have a number of board pages before you drill into the worksheet.
Yeah, this is a really fantastic thing to think about while you're sketching out that sitemap. Identifying those key summary bits of data and how they might lead the user to more detail should they wish to explore that. We work very closely with our UX colleagues to really understand things like progressive disclosure and the way of breaking that data down. And these are tips and techniques you can apply when building out your own sitemap as well. And as Steve says, the flexibilities in the new UX to create those navigation pathways however suits your end users.
Okay, we've got another question around how UX has been received by other model builders, and were there any major takeaways from project retrospectives that have changed the way we will be approaching future developments? So a great question, and as I mentioned, we actually released a beta at the back end of last year, so we've been working with a lot of different customers on different projects, and also we've been iterating the new user experience as we go through that. Yep. So there's been, we've also had an advisory board where we work with customers that we're building out prototypes and POCs on the new user experience. So we have changed our approach and directions based on the priorities from those projects. So one thing that changed, for example, when we first released the new user experience, you could only connect to module views. So we wanted to get the new user experience up and running first, rather than have to build out all the configuration. And then we introduced the custom views, which Dave shows, which means you could then build out the views and do the pivoting and stuff in the new user experience. So that was an example of how the future development changed as we introduced a new feature. What we have found, though, that some of the early adopters are continuing to use the module views because they may not be aware that custom views have been introduced, so we need to work on communicating those new features that do come out. But yeah, we're continuing to hear feedback from customers, and there is a feedback option I think was mentioned in the earlier session. So if you do click on that feedback, we'd love to hear any advice or challenges that you've had in adopting the new UX. So anything you want to say about that?
I think that's really key, Steve. That feedback button, whatever you submit there, comes straight to us. We've been very customer focused and customer first for the last year as we've been prioritizing features to develop. Many of the features in the product now are based on a lot of that feedback we've received. So keep that feedback coming. We find that really valuable, and it's really important to us. Now, I guess it's also worth to say that we have some of those early customers have now completed planning cycles using the new UX. So the new UX is becoming really well embedded across a number of organizations, and now is a great time to see what it can do for you.
Okay, we've had another question through. When will the KPI cards have the charts in the background? So this is the spark lines on the KPI card. So that's something that we are working on. We're looking probably around early next year, I'd have thought, for the KPI spark lines. But we need to weigh it up with other priorities. And one of the focuses that we do have at the moment is the kind of parity. So if there's any parity items there that aren't there, we want to prioritise them to make sure that everything's there for people to adopt the new user experience. Okay, I think that's all the questions we've had. So thanks a lot for listening. And as it mentions in the call-outs, I think there were 3 there, so make sure you've got set up as a page builder role. Keep an eye on community, because that's where we will post all the updates and the new features that we will be releasing. And then have a go, build a page and see how you get on.
Great. Steve and I will be joining the chat, so if there's any more questions, we'll hope to get them answered there. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Steve and Dave. There is so much exciting goodness to come from home to mobile and all the things in the pipeline. Right, we're going to take a 10-minute break now so you can stretch your legs, refill that cup of tea or get a snack, and we'll be back with you in 10 minutes time. All right, so see you then. Oh, Welcome back to User Groups Live here in York. Quick reminder, if you have any questions on the last segment, please post them in the chat window and continue the conversation there with us. Right, I have a question for you. When last were you in the Anaplan community site? Because I'd love to tell you some things about it. So, we are 45,000 members strong. 45,000. It's fantastic. And in the community, it's the place where connected planning conversations are happening. And it's also a place that has resources and programs and training. You can become a master Anaplanner, which is a tremendous achievement. So join your local user group and propose new ideas. And as you heard from Greg and Alicia and Pam, and when we were chatting with Steve and Dave about the new UX, your ideas, your contributions, your thoughts, they directly feed back into the product. So please get onto that forum. So you can also find help with your model building challenges. You can read up on connected planning thought leadership, connect with Anaplan support teams. And so we really encourage you, dig into the community, see what you can find, and let us know what you need. Right, speaking of connected planning, what's with the honeycomb? Now, you probably have heard something about the honeycomb at some of our previous events, excuse me, this year. So let's find out what the honeycomb is and why it matters to you with Carl and Alistair.
Hi everyone, I hope you're all enjoying User Group Live here in York. So we're here today to talk about the honeycomb and the navigator. So just as a bit of an introduction first, my name's Carl McPhee. I work as a business partner within the customer success organisation of Anaplan. I've been with Anaplan for around 2 years now and spent around 15 years across the software industry doing a variety of implementations. My major focus at the minute is around the larger clients in the automotive sector and consumer goods.
Hi, I'm Alistair Walls, also a business partner in the customer success organisation. I've been at Anaplan now for around 20 months and work with some of our larger customers, particularly focused on consumer goods and the telecoms industry as well.
Okay, so we're here today to talk about two things really, the honeycomb, which is probably something you've been hearing a lot about, but also the Anaplan Navigator as well. So to really understand the honeycomb, it's probably worth just taking a step back first and talking about use cases within Anaplan. So one of the very unique things about Anaplan is, as well as it being extremely powerful, it's also very, very flexible. And what this means is we see Anaplan deployed across so many different use cases, so many different planning processes across all areas of the organisation. This includes finance, sales, supply chain, and you can see some of the vast different arrays of use cases that we deploy Anaplan on. Now, what this means is customers use Anaplan in a variety of different ways, and you may start off on just a single use case in one area, but then quite quickly start to grow and use Anaplan across different processes across the organisation. Now, where this really starts to become very valuable is when you start to connect these use cases together. So moving on from those use cases, let's talk a little bit about connected planning. This is very much our mantra in Anaplan. This is where we see customers start to amplify that value of Anaplan. So not just the single isolated planning use case, but actually looking at the whole planning process across the organisation, looking at the different areas of that planning and modelling it in Anaplan, but then also connecting those together. And when we talk about connecting them together, we're talking about three different things really. Connecting them together from a data perspective. This is crucial, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
The data within the organisation, you know, we're really keen that the whole organisation is planning on a consistent set of data, a common source of the truth. So connecting these use cases from a data perspective, using techniques such as Anaplan data hubs, which you've probably seen and heard about, to enable that, but also connecting the people across those areas as well. We really recognise that planning can't take place in silos across the organisation. It's all part of a much larger planning process, so the people who are involved in those processes need to be connected together. So if you can achieve this almost holy grail of planning and connect all of these different plans together, you can end up with a single solution ran out of a single platform, Anaplan, which takes all of the planning processes across the business and runs them almost as a single unit really. The time you can react then comes down to very, very short amount of time, and you can start to get that holistic view of planning across the whole organisation. So the title of this is What is the Honeycomb? And I've not even mentioned honeycomb at this point really. So that's kind of setting the scene of what we mean by use cases and connected planning. And that's where we can start to bring in this idea of the honeycomb. So yeah, what is the honeycomb? So it's a simplified way of mapping your organisation from a planning perspective, looking at the different processes that exist and mapping those into use cases connected together. This is the honeycomb that we start to evolve within organisations. So in this example here, we can think of this as a typical Anaplan customer quite early in their journey, and they've embarked on implementing a revenue planning use case. So they're now using Anaplan to drive that planning process within their business. So you can start to look at that and think, well, okay, what planning processes sit next to that and are possibly connected with that as well? So they may look at this and sort of immediately realise that as well as revenue planning, there's also connected use cases such as expense planning as well. So you could potentially expand the use of Anaplan within your organisation to start running expense planning there as well. Then with those two pieces in place, you can then naturally start to see that, okay, we've now got a fuller view of the financial plan within the organisation. So maybe a separate model which brings that information together and presents that consolidated picture of the financial plan. And again, this kind of goes on really, just following these planning processes through the business, you then start getting into areas such as cost allocation. You know, asking those questions to people, what do people use these numbers for? You start to get the answers of where other planning processes exist. So cost allocation, people take the financial plan and they have to allocate those costs, and then that enables the next use case, something like product profitability analysis. So you can see how this kind of honeycomb starts to evolve with connected use cases developing. And as you continue down this line of thinking, you can build out an overall honeycomb with, as I say, the goal of it to be looking across the entire organisation, every planning process that exists, where they talk to each other, and how that could form a vision of how you want to run your planning process going forward.
Sorry,
Alistair, yeah.
just a quick question. Is there a right place to start with? The honeycomb connected planning?
Okay, yeah, that is a good one really, because the answer's no really. You can start from any point on this honeycomb, and we certainly see this in practice. Every customer is different. Every customer has started on their Anaplan journey on a particular use case. It might be demand planning for one organisation, it might be financial planning for another. But the good thing is there's no right answer to where you absolutely need to start. The key thing though is looking at where you are and building out those connections. So the honeycomb evolves outwards from where you currently are on Anaplan. Yeah.
And in terms of building those use cases out, is there anything that you must have before you start to look at these?
So yeah, a good understanding of process, that would probably be our key ask on this really. For you to really understand what your honeycomb looks like, you need to understand those processes across the business, and there's different techniques in order to get there, but the common question is, where do these numbers go once we've produced those numbers, who uses them and what do they use them for? That's very much a way of tracing it through the organisation. So that is the honeycomb, and then another reason why this is so important as well is once you've built that honeycomb out, you can use that to start generating your roadmap. So this is where, rather than just looking at the use cases and how they connect together, you can start to evaluate them and make decisions about, okay, how do we want to move forward? How do we build out this roadmap to get us from where we are today, which might be a single use case, or it might be a few use cases not necessarily connected together. How can we take that and build out a roadmap for the rest of this year and beyond to really build out this connected planning vision in Anaplan?
Sounds great.
Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. That's the honeycomb in a nutshell. Probably the key question is that, okay, well, how do we create one of these honeycombs?
Yeah, so I'm here now to talk very briefly about how you and your company can create your own honeycomb. We've already covered what the honeycomb is and why it's important, and hopefully by the end of this you should understand who needs to be involved and who from Anaplan can help and support you with this journey, what you need to do to facilitate the session and what outputs you can expect to get. What you've got to remember with this is our framework that we are working on. Please feel free to adapt this, change it in any way that you need, and please feel free to reach out to your business partner for further help with it. And additionally, how you can use the honeycomb to deliver further conversation topics and future discussion about the Anaplan roadmap as well. Before we actually start with looking at the workshops, what we wanted to do was just discuss briefly with you the actual objectives of the session that we're looking to cover. What we've got to remember is that all of these workshops are highly collaborative. When we are looking at connecting business processes and business plans, so none of this can be done in isolation. Ideally, you'd have people from multiple different business functions, but as a minimum, it would need to be people from different work streams within an individual function.
And probably when you're running one of these workshops, these people that you need to get in there, do they need to be Anaplan experts?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
These workshops can be done before an initial use case goes live, and Anaplan can support with discussing what is feasible, or alternatively, if you've had successful go lives, it does help to have somebody in there with some Anaplan knowledge, but it isn't necessary that every single person should have that.
Yeah, so the key thing is getting the people in that workshop who understand the processes, isn't it, and understanding how planning takes place across the whole organisation.
Yeah, absolutely, and this takes us to the first point of the objectives, which is the alignment on the executive vision for connected planning. So what we're saying really is that the people that should be brought into this are people at a senior level who understand the business strategy and tactics that they're going through. So these are people like the executives of individual business functions, potentially people, process owners and subject matter experts who understand sort of those tactical and operational layers as well in order to build up the different processes around it. The Anaplan knowledge starts to come in here in the second area, which is understanding how we can actually use Anaplan to leverage Anaplan to achieve the vision. You know, what's appropriate to do within Anaplan, and this is where the system-specific knowledge starts to become useful as well. The final point that and objective that we're looking to get to is an agreement on the action plan to make that vision achievable. In terms of the Honeycomb workshop itself, we are looking to get alignment in all of the enterprise objectives to deliver your own customized roadmap for each customer. So there are 5 exercises that we go through when we're doing this, looking to understand the vision of what your perfect planning process looks like, understand the opportunities that you have within your organization. Different organizations have different opportunities. So financial organizations vary highly from supply chain driven organizations.
And this part can be a good point to try and ask that question of what doesn't work today.
Yeah,
as well.
absolutely.
Kind of identify the pain points that you've got within your current planning processes.
Yeah, absolutely. The 3rd and 4th steps really sort of combine together to help us guide what the priorities are and your confidence in being able to deliver those solutions. And the final step is the actual development of the roadmap itself based upon all of those various different inputs. So looking at the vision aspect of the workshop, this is the only time that you would be asked to do anything in this by yourself. What we're looking to do is go through and identify 3 or 4 different words that help you to describe the ideal future state of your organization. If we link this back to the Anaplan way, for example, think of this as your project manifesto that whilst we're going through the workshop, you should be gearing everything else to. So in this example, we had a customer identify 4 key aspects that they wanted. They wanted their planning process to be flexible. They needed to be able to make changes, to adapt to different business processes over time. It needed to be efficient by providing data in a timely manner and timely and accurate data to help make business decisions. The processes all needed to be integrated. So what we're talking about here is what Carl referenced earlier in terms of a data hub, having one source of truth across the entire organisation that everybody can reference back to.
Yeah, it kind of sets the scene quite nicely,
yeah,
doesn't it, in terms of these vision statements. If you can agree these at the high level, as you go through the rest of this journey on building out your honeycomb, you can keep cross-referencing back to this and checking use cases to whether they would meet these overall vision objectives.
Yeah, absolutely. And finally, it needs to be user-friendly. So we need to provide a seamless experience that all of the end users can get involved with and can add value to them, reduce time, improve accuracy, and help deliver on their job requirements. So once that vision's been done and we've identified the key aspects, we move on to the second exercise, which is working in small groups, looking to identify a number of different use cases that matter to you as an organisation. So in this example, we have seen examples coming from 4 or 5 different functional areas, from supply chain, finance, operations, etc., and a number of different use cases within each of those. So again, this is all about discussion, driving discussion within the organisation to identify what those key areas are, and again, identifying the key people that you need and key stakeholders that you would need to engage with to actually implement this by understanding those different functional areas.
And this is where you can ask those questions of, whatever your current use case is, asking those questions of where do these numbers go once we produce them. That very much, the answer to that question really starts to trace the planning process through your organisation, and it helps you to kind of identify these different planning use cases which then take place to help build out this view of what opportunities do you have as a business.
Yeah, absolutely. And once we've actually created these different use cases, refined them down, because the list often ends up significantly longer than this, we get to that initial starting point of the honeycomb. So within this, you can see a whole ecosystem of different use cases that connect together, which, whilst valuable, which is extremely valuable and gives us a target of what we can go after to use Anaplan for. However, there are a couple of other steps that we need to go through to really start to add value at this stage, primarily around the prioritization of these different use cases. So what we see here is these two exercises of understanding the expected benefit and understanding the level of effort required to actually improve improve and implement those planning processes. So this is done quite simply. So it's a simple either red, amber, green rating to understand the expected benefit initially, or you could do it on a rating scale of 1 to 10 to really sort of delve down into that. Once that initial exercise has been done to identify the benefit, we can then look at doing the same exercise on the level of effort required to actually implement those solutions. Once we've got those two different ratings, it allows us to put the different use cases into different quadrants into various different quadrants. So what we can see here is that we've got quick wins, high impact but high effort, minor and simple improvements, and a number which are low priority, things that may drop off the roadmap over time or would be put right to the end.
And this is really important, isn't it?
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
When you go through this exercise, what you'll find is you identify so many use cases. Planning across every organisation is complicated. It involves a lot of different areas. So you will identify a lot of different use cases. So this is very much a technique then of trying to work out where best to spend your time, isn't it? And when we're talking about kind of assessing that level of effort, what kind of things would distinguish the level of effort?
Yeah, absolutely. So things that tend to distinguish that level of effort that are required are things like how many users will be working in it? Are there significant process changes required? How many business functions does this cross? Is it within a single function, therefore providing an output to somewhere else? Or actually, is it something like S&OP that covers 4 or 5 different business functions? The higher the number of those functions, the more complex they tend to be. You also have to consider things like how you're going to deploy this. Is this being deployed for one region or one market, or is it going to be deployed globally to multiple countries, all with different, slightly different requirements in terms of those processes? So these are considerations that need to be made with when going through these exercises.
Yeah, and I think a key point there is in terms of that understanding of the process.
Correct.
If this is already a well-defined process within your organisation, that means you've got a better chance of understanding it and a better chance of implementing it within Anaplan. If it's a completely new process, there needs to be some thinking there first, and it all feeds into this assessment of the level of effort for each use case.
Yeah, absolutely. The final step in this as well, and what you can see here with the different colours within this, is how use cases are sort of clustered together to identify the dependencies upon each other. So this is making sure that when we're looking at a particular problem, we are going through all of those individual steps to allow you to actually build everything out. And what you see at the end of this is, as Carl mentioned earlier, something like this roadmap. So in this particular organisation, what we can see is that they started off with their P&L planning and their S&OP target setting. But where they started to see value with additional use cases were around things like demand planning and sales planning. Directly linked, the sales planning obviously pulling in a demand signal right from the end customer, the demand planning looking at where that's going to impact all of their individual manufacturing sites and understanding that. From there they can go and drive through things like production planning and inventory planning down the supply chain side, or in terms of the more operational side of things, looking at daily capacity, most economical sources of supply, leading into plant cost forecasting, etc.
Yeah.
And both of those are down sort of the supply chain and operational side. Within the finance area, there were further identifications in terms of what commercial activity are you planning in terms of trade promotions, etc., to allow you to understand really the cost of sales.
So yeah, I mean, this really gives you that view then, doesn't it, of the roadmap. You know, when, as I say, you'll identify a lot of different use cases, and the question then is, it almost feels like too much. Where do we prioritize and where do we spend our time? By going through this kind of exercise and assessing each use case as per that matrix which Alistair was showing, you can start to build out this roadmap, and you know where to go next. Then you can do it in a controlled way.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about identifying where the value lies within the organisation.
Yeah.
Is it going after the quick wins to free up capital, or is it about targeting a couple of really high value but difficult to implement things that are probably more strategic in vision but take longer to actually deliver? And it really comes down to your organisation's priorities, and what we're trying to do is give a number of different options to people as to how they need to deliver those, or could deliver those.
The answer here will be specific to every organisation, really. It will follow this approach of a connected planning honeycomb and a roadmap associated with that, but it will be different for every organisation.
Yeah.
So, okay, so that lays out kind of, they're the kind of techniques that we've been using in Anaplan Customer Success to help customers run these kind of workshops and work out their honeycomb. Obviously, you know, you can do this yourselves as an organisation, but the question then is, okay, what other resources are available to you to help you on this journey? And that brings us into the Anaplan Navigator. So this is something that we've set up in Anaplan. It's a website. You can go to this now, have a look around. It's navigator.anaplan.com. And effectively what this is it's an interactive knowledge hub specifically aimed at giving you the knowledge and the resources you need to start building out your honeycombs. So the way we've laid this out is we've divided it between the three key functional areas that we see: finance, supply chain and sales. And if you click into any of those areas, what you will see is example honeycombs. So these are the most common honeycombs that we're seeing from organisations. It gives you inspiration and ideas of what use cases other customers are using it for. So you can use this very much as a sort of a source of inspiration, really.
Yeah. One of the other real benefits of this is it can be used to help engage your senior stakeholders as well. So rather than them having to go and invest their time in something that they don't know a huge amount about, what you can do is use it to provide examples to them as well of what is possible with Anaplan, to start getting them thinking, to start helping them to see what the potential value is in going down the route of creating your own honeycomb at the end of the day. And by using those pre-built honeycombs, it's much faster to get that engagement.
Yeah, so definitely check out the Navigator. There's videos and white paper resources on there as well.
Absolutely.
Certainly encourage everybody to take a look at that. Okay, so just a quick wrap up, conscious of time. Really, request from us, call to action. Start thinking about your honeycomb wherever you are on that journey of Anaplan. Start thinking about it and how you would start to build that out. As I say, check out the Anaplan Navigator, great resource to help with this. And if you need any further inspiration, reach out to business partners like myself and Alistair. We can help guide customers on this journey. I think we've got some questions coming through on the chat though. So, okay, thanks a lot. Hi everyone. Yeah, so we're just looking at the questions coming through, and yeah, there's a great question here about, are these templates available for the honeycomb slides? They look great. They do look great, actually. They've got an amazing transition on them, which we're exceptionally proud of. But yeah, we can make these templates available. But what you'll also find, again, as I mentioned before, on the navigator, that's our single resource for templates around creating your honeycomb. So if you go on there, not only will you find the videos and the white paper resources, but you'll also see examples of honeycombs as well. But we'll certainly look into how we can start making this collateral more available, maybe start publishing it on Community actually as well, because it would be good to get this out in the hands of all the customers really, because yeah, we very much want you to start building out your own honeycomb, so this could help. Okay, so not seeing any other questions at the minute. So yeah, thanks everyone. Hope you've really enjoyed User Group Live. Hope that's been useful from a honeycomb perspective. Hopefully you know what a honeycomb is now, and yeah, let's keep continuing to build these out. Thanks a lot.
I was going to say, Carl and I will also be available online afterwards, answering some questions in the forum. So if there's anything else that people would like to know about, please feel free to let us know, and we'll do our best to answer them at that point as well.
Great. Thanks everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much, Carl and Alistair. So we really encourage you, check out the Anaplan Navigator, explore how Honeycomb could work for you in your organization, and have a chat with your business partner to see how they can help you start bringing the Anaplan Honeycomb into your company. Right. So with that, we come to the end of our User Groups live session here in York. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for all the comments and the questions and the conversation in the chat window. It's been great today. Sorry, the live chat window will be open for the next 30 minutes once the broadcast ends. And as we said earlier in the day, this session has been recorded and will be shared out with you in an email in the next day or two. So look out for that. Now, I'm very excited to share with you our next User Groups live session, which is happening in London this week, excuse me, on Thursday between 3 and 6 GMT. So we would love to have you in our London office. It's a fabulous office. We have lots of exciting things to tell you about. So please sign up. You can do that by clicking on the banner just below this little video window to register for Thursday. And remember, you can also join your local user group and in the community connect online and also and offline and share best practices, share best practices and tips. So you can learn about new and upcoming features and the platform and get access to experts in the community. Now we host dozens of meetups and events each year in cities all around the world. Remember, we have 45,000 community members. We have something for everyone. So dig in, see what you can find, and we hope to see you there. So with that, I would like to say thank you so much for being with us today. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you in York, in the home of Anaplan, and we really hope to see you again very soon, hopefully in London on Thursday, otherwise at the next User Groups Live event. So with that, thank you very, very much and hope to see you soon. Goodbye.